frustrated? You feel frustrated you can't have my hot dog? Hey everybody, my name's Carrie and thank you so much for joining me on my little channel where I get to share all my crafty endeavors. It's been a while, almost 2 months I think, and I didn't intend for it to be that long. The timing has just been that way. I found it very difficult to find the time to set up and record and get edited and stuff, having Violet as a little puppy. She's getting a little older now. I gave her a bone. She took it off somewhere and I don't have to watch her as closely. So that's a good thing. This is episode 70. Today is Tuesday, May 14th, 2019. Thank you so much for joining me and being patient and hanging in there. And I'm going to be a little bit rusty and we're just going to go with it because that's all we can really do. In the last episode that I recorded, I had talked about getting this quilt that's on the wall quilted. I had it shown it as just a top. And the pattern is called Prism by Zen Chic. And it is a paper piece pattern. I don't think it's available any longer. I made this top several years ago and it sat for a really long time because I just didn't care for it. In fact, I'm going to try and turn. Can you see it a little better? So let's see if I get myself back in there. There we go. I just didn't care for the fabrics. Making it was fine and it went together really well. I just didn't really care for the fabrics that I had, and I explained all that in the last episode. So I've quilted it. I used a pantograph called Time Warp by Urban Elements, and I really liked that panto. It went very smoothly. It was very rhythmic in how you stitch it out, and I just think it gave it a really nice texture on the quilt. So so there it is. I can now send it off to my friend who, sorry. Let's just move that. Okay. Send it off to my friend who lives in Colorado. So hopefully she'll enjoy it. I did go out on a quilt retreat with some friends a few weeks back. And I hadn't been on one in a long time. And it's not a retreat where there's teachers or anything like that. We call it a retreat just because it's a group of friends getting together. We rent a place. And we just sit and sew and quilt and whatever for the weekend. It's been a long time since I've done that, 3 years maybe. And so I did go with my friends. And at first I was a little hesitant because I've just been in a real funky mindset lately. And I thought, do I really want to go? I don't know. I suppose it'll probably be good for me to get out and get amongst friends and stuff. And I was so glad I did it. I got myself in my little zone. I just sat there with my little featherweight machine. Featherweight is a Singer. It's an old style machine that they made. Mine was done in the 1950s and they go as early as 30s and 40s, I think. So all it does is a straight stitch. It's a very basic machine and it just sews really nicely. And I thought, I'm just taking that. It's a lightweight machine. I'm not going to do anything fancy. I'm bringing one project, and then I brought a knitting project in case I had time or felt like I wanted to not sit and sew for a while. And so what the project that I brought was my Forest Friends, which I have shown progress of, through different episodes. And I feel like I made pretty good progress, but I have to take it out, part of it. So I was working on the thistles. So the thistles, let's see, you can probably see the blue one the best, is right there. It's that little thistle. And I'm just in my own little zone and I'm just stitching along. Do you see a problem? These are all going the wrong way. It's supposed to be, these are all supposed to be on opposite sides so that it's more jagged. And I'm sewing it and I get it all put up on the design wall and my friend goes, "You made those wrong." I thought, what did I do? Well, if you look here, you can see how the top is supposed to be more open, like jagged, and that's not. And at first I thought, well, it's a closed thistle. It still has little spikes and whatnot, but when I stood back from it, you couldn't tell, and I thought that's a lot of work just to make it look like it's a 45-degree angle. So I need to take this whole top off and all these pieces apart and put them in the right order and stitch them. So of course I did that with every single one, but they all look pretty cool. You know, the fabrics and stuff look pretty cool. They're just sewn wrong. So I wasn't in the mood for that, because who wants to do that? At first I just was going to leave it, and then I realized that no, I need to fix it. So by that time I had gotten into doing this. I love this one. Doing my next piece, which is, they call it a firefly, which is, looks like a butterfly. So I'm in the process of putting those pieces together, but it's still in various pieces. So that was a weekend, just getting those put together. This is a very labor intensive project. Lots of pieces. It's not paper pieced. It's all cut and sewn. And it all goes together really nicely if you put the pieces together correctly. I could have left it, but I'm not going to leave it. So then I started to double think, you know, I'm intending this to be a graduation quilt for my niece. She doesn't graduate until next year, so I've got time. And I knew it was going to take me a long time to put it together. And then I thought, is that too juvenile for like an 18-year-old? I like it, but maybe I like juvenile. I don't know. I like colorful and I like whimsical. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Is that too juvenile? I don't know. I still have a year to figure it out. So while I was sewing that stuff together, something that a friend of mine has done in the past and was talking about it is using, when you use leaders and enders. So when you're making a quilt, you're often chain piecing. So you're just putting one piece through after another, not cutting them apart, so that the space in between is real small, and so you're not wasting thread. A really good practice is to start your stitching on a piece of scrap fabric. So that gets both the bottom and top threads locked together, and then it feeds through and you don't end up with that little bird's nest in the beginning. And then if you just put a piece of fabric in at the end, when you're done with your chain piecing, then you're ready for the next round of chain piecing. Well, what she does is she makes that very intentional. So she has pieces cut out for another quilt, and for her leaders and enders, she'll put a piece through that's going to go to a quilt. I always have just picked a piece of scrap fabric and just, you know, eventually when you get tons of stitching over it, you toss it and get another piece of scrap fabric. Well, one of my friends had a bunch of leftover fabric from a previous quilt. And she's like, "Do you want to do anything with this?" And I thought, I bet you there's enough in there to make like a charity kids quilt. So she had a bunch of squares, and I started sewing squares together as leaders and enders. Instead of using a piece of scrap fabric that I'm going to throw away, I would put this through, put my squares together, sew them through, then do the piecing I needed to do for the quilt I'm working on. And then I'd grab two other squares, and when I'm done with my chain piecing, and run that other square through. So now as I'm working through the quilt I'm working on, I'm getting all these little squares sewn together. Now I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I just figured I'll start sewing squares together and I'll just put something together after I get a bunch of stuff sewn together. It's just going to be kind of scrappy, and I'll use up all this fabric that she had in there, and then eventually I'll have another quilt made, and I'm not wasting any thread, and I'm being more useful of my time. So I thought that was a really good suggestion. And you have to do if you're going to do something like this, I suggest doing your second quilt, whatever you're using as your leaders and enders, as a very easy pattern, something that you can keep track of, because you're already going to be keeping track of the quilt you're working on. So to keep track of two might be a little complicated. So like I said, I've just got squares together. I was even thinking I could do just strips and do like a rail fence or something really easy and just run those through as my leader and ender, and then I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone. So that was a really helpful hint. That same friend that had all this extra fabric brought me a bunch, well, she gave me a bunch of these kind of pieces and pieces to make this. She had made a king size? I think it was a king size quilt using a bunch of these little stars, and these were extra. And she's like, I'm done with it. She doesn't like working with gray and stuff like that. That's not her color palette. And so she's like, here, you do something with it. So she gave me all the extra fabric, all the fabric that she had that has this star block in various stages. So I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but I think it would make a really cute little boy's quilt with a bunch of little stars and some navy blue. So like another one that I'm going to do that will be another charity quilt. And I'm planning on giving it, I'm going to make small quilts as charity quilts for like a child size. And the police stations like to have stuff like that. So when they have to go get a kid and put him in foster care and remove him from him or her from a bad situation, it's nice if they have something nice. They'll have a stuffed animal and we can give them a little quilt, and they like that. So that's what I'm gonna plan on doing as I'm working through other quilts, using my leaders and enders technique, and just kind of get some charity stuff taken care of. Another tip that I learned, see, it was really good. It was really good that I went. Besides spending a nice weekend with some friends, it was like I kind of got back into my little sewing mojo. But something that somebody had, and it's for cleaning out your sewing machine. In the bobbin area in particular, you get a lot of lint because you're sewing on fabric and it gets very linty, and it's always good to clean that area out. And she had these little applicators. I don't know if you can see that the tip of it has a little fuzzy end to it. And I don't know what they're for, and I looked it up on Amazon and I can't even remember. It was like an applicator something, and you get like a pack of a gazillion of them for like $8. I think I got 400 of them. And that's really good for getting in around your bobbin area to get that extra lint and fluff out of there. And it helps your machine run better if you do that and then oil it. And I'm really good about doing that, but it was nice to have a neat little tool. Something I picked up for future is the new book by So Kind of Wonderful. And it's their mini wonderful curves. It's got the most cutest stuff in there. I'm really excited to use it. I already have their mini ruler. I've made a couple quilts with the big ruler, and it's a great technique. It's a great ruler. She's got a lot of neat things figured out, and then she has the mini version, which so it makes like table runners and wall hangings and stuff. But super cute. I'm excited to try and make something out of that. Another thing I picked up was this. It's a kit to make these charcoal mittens. So you've got all the stuff you need, all the flannel and floss and all that stuff to make these little 4-inch Christmas mittens. And I thought that would be really cute as like a gift tag or something. I don't know. I kind of wish I bought more than one kit, because I think I'm going to want a set for me. So that's some hand sewing that's going to be coming down the pike. Gotta get ready for Christmas because it's already May and I haven't even thought about it. And I say this every year. I'm going to get on it. I'm going to start making my gifts early, and then I just don't until it gets to be about Thanksgiving. And then I'm like, oh, I know, I'll make all these things. And then I don't have time, and then I get frustrated. But part of somebody's gift is going to be a little felt mitten. Oh, okay, so that's all the sewing stuff, and I do have a little bit of yarny stuff, knitting and crocheting. I had gone for a while. My shoulder was really hurting, and I could hardly lift my arm or get dressed. So it was very painful, and I've injured the shoulder before. I've torn the ligaments in it, and it just was kind of one of those, like, gosh, something's just not right. It's like all just funky. And then I went to pick up Violet one day, and just the way I bent over and lifted, something snapped, and it was like, oh crap, that's not good. I iced it, and the next day I'm like, I was cured. So I was like, good, because when that hurt, I couldn't knit. I was like, maybe it's, I'm getting tendonitis from knitting or something, and I don't know. It's just my tendon got in the wrong spot, and so then when it went back, everything was good. So I started knitting again. So I've been very monogamously knitting until this last weekend on my Harvest sweater. It's the Harvest sweater by Tin Can Knits. It's a worsted weight sweater that I am using double strands of fingering weight yarn. It is going very nicely. I've enjoyed working on it so much that that really is the only thing I've been knitting on. So I am currently, let's see if I can show you. I'm currently on the bottom ribbing. It's garter stitch, so it's not really ribbing. But, it'd be what ribbing is on other sweaters. So, the thing I'm liking about this is you build in this neckband as you go. It's just garter stitch. So, I'm not going to have to pick anything up. The neckband is done as I'm knitting. And then it's got garter stitches on the bottom for your bottom ribbing. So, I'm supposed to get to 4 inches, and I think I've got a little over 2 maybe. So it's just, just knitting back and forth at this point until I get that, which, takes a while because you've got a lot of stitches on here. But I did put the bottom on it, like I used another pair of needles to slide through it because I thought I need to test and see how long I want to make this. And it fits. I think it's going to fit really nice. So the pattern called for you to go, for my size, from the armpit down like 15 inches, and I tried it on at 12 inches, and I thought, if I'm adding another 4 inches of bottom band, it's going to be too long. So I went with 12 inches, and I think by the time I block it, then it's going to grow because it's all superwash. So it is very soft. I had talked about it before that I'm using a dyed strand and an undyed strand, and the undyed is an MCN blend. And I had been knitting a cowl out of MCN, and it was getting very fuzzy looking, and I wasn't sure that I would like a sweater that way for me personally. Knitting the MCN with another strand is not nearly as fuzzy. So I think that helped kind of solve that problem. But it's going to be really nice when we get back into cold weather. And when it gets cold again, we're just now starting to get kind of into summer, although today's raining. But it was like 85 over the weekend. But come next winter or fall, my sweater will be ready. So as soon as I'm done with the button band, I'll pick up this for the sleeves. I'm going to do like 3/4 sleeves because I never wear long sleeves. I always push them up. I don't like to have sleeves around my wrist. So that makes the sleeves go a little bit faster. Easy pattern. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. It's the Harvest sweater by Tin Can Knits. I even made a buttonhole. I was like, oh, I could just leave it. They show it in the picture with just having like a shawl pin kind of holding it closed, and I thought, that's not going to work for me. I'm going to need a button. I made a buttonhole right there. It's not hard. I wasn't sure how to do it. I've never done one before because so far I've only made pullover sweaters, and it was pretty easy. So once I get it all done knitted, then I've got to search for a button. So if you guys know of a good source to look for like a cute, maybe funky kind of button, not just something I can find at Joann's. Leave a comment below because I don't know where to go to get that kind of stuff. Probably at a yarn shop, I imagine. So once I get it finished and I can then take the sweater with me and make sure I get the right size. It may even say the size in the pattern. I just haven't looked that far. But anyway, if you have an idea, let me know. There's a crochet pattern that I had seen. I follow Lucy, who is Addict24 on Instagram. That's her, she has a blog, Addict24. And she crochets blankets and a lot of blankets and some other accessories and stuff. But her color choices just appeal to me, really appeal to me. So she put out a pattern. Her patterns are free. She put a pattern out for what she called the Dune blanket. And the color palette she chose was kind of a softer, not pastel, but a little more subdued kind of, you know, variety of colors. And I just loved it. I just loved it. And I kept going back and just like, oh, should I really make a blanket? Like, why do I need to make a blanket? I have quilts, and do I need a blanket? I've already got that other blanket I've started, but I've kind of lost my love affair with. And I thought, no. And I just, for like a month, back and forth. And I'd pull it up on, she uses Stylecraft yarn, which is a yarn out of the UK from the Wool Warehouse. It's a DK weight yarn. And I thought, I'm just curious, you know, so I'm looking it up, and she has the whole color packet that you can get. It only ends up costing like $30 to make like a throw blanket. That's pretty inexpensive. Should I do it? What if it's scratchy? I don't know. Finally, I'm like, it's $30. It ends up being a little bit more because you pay for shipping, but shipping's not horrible. So I'm like, I'm going to do it. I really think I would enjoy making this blanket. So I'm like looking at it on my phone and putting it in my cart and taking it out of my cart and doing all this stuff. So I finally decided to push the button. I'm going to buy this yarn pack that has all the colors. It's 15 different shades, and then you get the printout of the pattern and blah, blah, blah. So then I get my confirmation. They ship it right away, and I got it within a few days. And I ended up somehow ordering the wrong yarn packet. I ordered the yarn packet for what she called her cupcake blanket. So the cupcake blanket then uses 15 shades of whatever colors go with that. I'm like, I didn't want the cupcake one. I wanted the Dune blanket because I liked the subtle colors. So it's on its way like immediately. I can't even change my order. So I thought, all right, well, I'm going to just go with cupcake. And so I'm making a Dune blanket out of the cupcake colorway. I did get a pattern with my cupcake colorway for the cupcake stripe blanket. I just really didn't. I really liked the shell pattern that was in the Dune blanket. So my Dune blanket isn't exactly like her Dune blanket. And I wanted to try and get at least all 15 colors together before I showed you guys. But I thought today would be a good day to try and record. So it's not, I don't have all 15 colors, but I have 10, 12 of them, right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 of them. So I decided to do more of a color wash effect. So I laid all the colors out on the bed and kind of put them in a gradation that I thought was appealing. I had Jim look at it and he agreed, and I said, okay, I can make it kind of like this, or I can make it like this. And he agreed that he liked the more of a color wash effect. So after this, it goes into some greens, which then goes into blues, and then you start the sequence over. So it'll still be striped. It'll just not be so scrappy striped. So you get this packet in this big organza bag. So these are all my colors. It is an acrylic yarn, but it's very soft, and it's been nice to work with. So I hesitated. I thought, do I just hold on to this and then, you know, order a Dune packet? And I'm like, no, you've got all this yarn, make a blanket with it, and then decide. So this is going to be, let's see if I can hold it up. The next, I don't know if I can hold it up. The next colors that it goes into these greens. And then it goes into some blues, and I think it's going to be really pretty. So I would have never put these colors together because I would have never picked the brown. I do think it's going to help kind of ground it a little, because as I was making like this, I'm like, this just looks like a little girl's blanket. It just looked too juvenile. Oh, I'm showing you the back side too. I don't know. Is there a front side and back side? Maybe that might be the front side. I don't know. I was afraid it was going to look too juvenile without that brown. It really does. So now this brown kind of like grounded it a little bit. And then I think once I get some blues and greens in there, it'll help. And if I don't end up liking it and I think it looks like a little girl's blanket, then I'll donate it to some little girl. And then I'll order the right yarn packet and make the other one. But it's going to be a nice blanket to lay under, because it really is a soft blanket. And I know my grandma crocheted, and she crocheted with Red Heart yarn. I'm sure that's what it was, scratchy acrylic yarn. And we loved those blankets, and they last forever. So why the heck not? I'm not opposed to using acrylic for blankets. So we'll see. I am loving working on this. My arm started to get sore the other night because I was watching Game of Thrones, and I think I was getting a little too intense, and it was kind of starting to bug my arm, but other than that, I'm okay. So those are between the sweater and that blanket. That's all I've been working on. I got the yarn for the blanket the day we left for camping this last weekend. I'm like, oh, good. All I have to do is bring a couple of crochet hooks and had the directions on my phone, because I got the cupcake colorway. I got the pattern for the cupcake stripe blanket. If I'd gotten the dune colorway, I would have gotten the pattern for the dune blanket, but the pattern is on her blog. And so I can just pull that up and just follow the directions on that. It'd be nice to have a piece of paper, but her directions are really, really good, because she has step by step. For somebody that doesn't really know how to crochet very much, has beautiful pictures, easy to follow, really easy to understand. So now that I've got the shell pattern kind of down of how it's supposed to go, I wrote it out so that I don't have to keep looking at her blog. But I was able to do it while I was camping, and that was really nice, because we had a really nice, relaxing weekend. We camped over Mother's Day weekend. I'm having some troubles with my lower back into my hip, and so I was kind of resting it on Saturday, and so it was perfect. The weather was beautiful, and I just sat and crocheted in the forest, and it was lovely. Robert and Michael came up and met us up there, because we weren't very far from home, and we just barbecued some hot dogs and built a campfire and had some s'mores for Mother's Day, and it was wonderful. So those are my two projects. I have really been just focusing on those when I've been able to knit or whatever, and that's usually just in the evenings. I don't have time really during the day. So, and Violet's has not shown her face since we started, so fingers crossed she's not doing anything. I think she's just chewing on her bone. So far, she hasn't really ripped up anything, but she's sneaky, and she'll get into stuff that you're like, where did you find that? You think that you have everything childproof until you have a puppy, and you realize there's little nooks and crannies. Hang on a second. Oh, sorry. The other day, I met up with Michelle and Leslie and Lori, and it was Lori's birthday, and we all got together, and we went to Starlight Knitting. And there was a trunk show of less traveled yarn, and I bought a skein of her yarn called Forest Floor. And it's just got these really pretty plum kind of colors with some sort of gray brown. I thought it would make a really pretty hat, and I was kind of thinking of the Midas hat. The Midas hat is a free pattern on Ravelry, and you knit like the inside of the brim with a provisional cast on, and then in a contrasting color or not, and then pick up your main color, and then that brim gets folded under, so you have like a contrasting color inside. And I thought it'd be really a kind of a neat thing to do with this yarn. This is an MCN, I believe. Yeah, MCN 435 yards. It's the Creosote collection. I don't know what that means. She was really sweet. So I thought it would be neat to pick like a pinky plum color and do the inside of the brim and then make a hat for winter. So that's kind of what I'm planning on doing with that. And then Kat, my dear friend Kat, sent me a couple of cute minis. These are hedgehog fibers. I don't have any hedgehog fibers. See, I think you do something like that on the inside of this as just a fun little pop of color. Would be kind of fun. So that was really sweet. This is Sorry Not Sorry, and this is Kimono, which are just cool. And then Mina Phillips, Knitting Expat, came out with a shawl pattern that uses minis. I don't remember how many minis. She did hers like in a rainbow, which I'm not opposed to rainbows, obviously. But I thought I would try something different maybe and like pull some minis that go with this and then figure out what I do with the background color. Maybe black. That'd be cool. I have an MCN black from when I went to Yellowstone. That could be kind of cool. So anyway, my brain was going. I'm going to try and finish the projects I have going instead. So that kind of makes it hard too when I think, oh, I'll try and record a podcast, and then I don't really feel like I have a whole lot to say because I've only been working on one project. Something that I did start to pick back up again is dot painting. I really want to try and work on that this summer when I'm off school, and hopefully my puppy will let me sit and dot paint for a while. But let me show you what I've made so far. I'll be right back. This is not really that good, but I'm going to show it anyway because I've already shown it on Instagram. So it's a work in progress. It's just practicing. So the white lines are just chalk lines that will come off when I'm all done painting it. I didn't have a plan other than a color scheme, and I picked a color scheme. Sorry, I got fluff. Picked a color scheme off of Pinterest. I've got a bunch of different color schemes that I saved when I was dyeing yarn, and I would try and come up with colorways and stuff. And so this, I don't know where it's going. I'm just sort of going with it, and I'm enjoying it. It's very relaxing to just dip and dot and dip and dot. So it may sound tedious, but it is relaxing. So I'm hoping that I can do a little bit more of that this summer. I'll keep working on this and I'll show progress. I mean, even if it's not perfect, it's okay to show progress. It's just doing it for enjoyment right now. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's a work in progress, and I think it's just kind of a neat thing. If you on Instagram follow the hashtag dot painting, there's some gorgeous pieces out there that give me a lot of inspiration. So I'm hoping to maybe be able to do that. I think that's something if I set up downstairs, because Violet loves to be out in the backyard, and so if I can set up outside, let her just sit and chew on a stick or whatever she's going to do, then maybe I can sit and dot paint. That's my hope. I just hope she lets me do that. So I have really far behind on podcasts. I can't even recommend anybody. I try and recommend a new one that I found, but I honestly am behind on the ones that I already currently watch. But, I think it's all temporary. Like I said, she's getting a little bit better at not needing me every moment. She just needs me to play with her and needs me to pay attention to her, and it doesn't allow for a lot of time for other stuff. But that's okay. She's only a puppy once, thank God. I'm not doing a puppy ever again. She's a good girl. She really is. I just really like my own time. So I'm not going to do a puppy again. Anyway, I hope you all have been well, and thank you for those of you that have sent me messages saying that you're thinking of me and that you miss seeing the podcast and stuff. I really do appreciate it. I just want to have content when I get on here, and there just hasn't been any. So hopefully that's going to change here real soon, and we'll see what ends up happening with all these projects that I've got going. So I hope your spring is actually being spring-like. If you're on the East Coast, sounds like you're having some pretty crappy weather. Sorry about that. But I hope you all are well, and I will hopefully get back here some more sooner than later. In the meantime, keep on making stuff, and I will see you next time.